The Nazis said they were following orders. That was the excuse of the people that were below other people that were below Hitler. But nobody is lifting the arms of this person and squeezing the trigger. If you follow orders and you are taking away from yourself the biggest responsibility you have as a person on this planet, and that is to make your own choices. If you agree that following orders is the only course of action that is morally responsible, then go ahead and you'll face the consequences.
Bush knew Iraq committed no crime against this country when he ordered the most awesome army on earth to open fire upon innocent men, women, and children in the middle of the night. Bush ordered this massacre, which by early 2004 had killed over 10,000 innocent Iraqis and left over 1,000 military men's bodies blown up, bludgeoned, and buried in blood.
You have all of these reports from the Arab media saying hundreds of women and children have been killed. Marines on the ground saying they're not attacking civilians, but the ground truth is the Pentagon does not keep a civilian casualty count, and we don't really know how many civilians have died. All they can say is that Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya are covering it.
Bush had to sell the American people the big lie, and the American people had to buy it to justify this ruthless attack upon a defenseless, defeated country ruled by a dictator which the CIA and his father had helped stay in power.
Do you think the soldiers on the front line of this war know that the weapons of mass destruction ruse is just that, just a ruse?
Think about it. We are in Nazi Germany, 1939. The invasion of Poland has just taken place. We are on the verge of potentially World War III, the draft, the whole thing.
And Iraq is free.
These guys are practiced liars. It's what they do for a living. It's who they are.
Do you think that's why they keep pushing the weapons of mass destruction issue to set up an imminent attack?
Well, they just took it all back. I mean, with David Kaye's testimony, and in Britain, Lord Hutton, basically absolving Tony Blair of any wrongdoing in the death of Dr. Kelly, and at the same time saying that somehow he never talked about weapons of mass destruction, and the head of the BBC resigning, and it's like, wait a second, we're in some fantasy land.
The allegation in the broadcast that the government probably knew that the 45-minute figure was wrong, even before it decides to put it in, was a very grave allegation which attacked the integrity of the government and the integrity of the Joint Intelligence Committee.
We do not know, we can't know.
If you talk to folks in the administration privately, they concede what seems to be obvious to everybody else, that there was some major gap between the accusations and what actually occurred there.
I don't really think the weapons of mass destruction were the sole reason for the war.
President Bush said on March 17th of last year, 3 days before the war started with Iraq.
Intelligence gathered by this and other governments leaves no doubt that the Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here.
The Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised.
If you were that you wanted me to put on some monkey suit and remove my brain and do exactly what you say and go to some country and kill people I've never met for some bogus reason, let me tell you, I'd be a Marine, or maybe I'd be in the Army, or the Navy, or the Air Force. Doesn't really matter.
Kissinger met with the families of 9/11 victims and assured them he was on the job. Kissinger had been lauded as the ideal choice when President Bush named him.
The American people appreciate this sacrifice. And our government owes you more than gratitude.
In the book, The Final Days by Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, there's a quote from Henry Kissinger. Kissinger, the key advisor to both George Opium Poppy Bush and his son, the President of the United States, refers to the military.
Military men are dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns for foreign policy.
These billionaire banksters use the U.S. military like toilet paper to wipe up their excrements before they're flushed away into a satanic system and forever forgotten. Is this conspiracy being conducted by the evilarchy that operates through the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, and the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which operates from the city, within the city in London?
Well, once you really delve into the details and the people and the organizations behind these events, yes, you see the same telltale folks and the same thing.
We're coming up now to Bush House, which is the headquarters of the BBC World Service, where George Orwell wrote his famous novel 1984 in a broom cupboard. Big Brother, BB, is the BBC, the Big Brother Corporation.
Here at Bush House is the headquarters for the New World Order's Big Brotherment communications system. It's called the BBC, the World Service, where George Orwell wrote his book 1984. He knew what it would be like. And when you see the film, when you read the book, the New World Order is your worst nightmare. It's a living hell on earth. Hitler's dream come true, Bush's dream come true. George Orwell described the New World Order, what it would be like. He said, a black hobnailed boot, forever stomping in the face of humanity. What is the Bush connection? Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer, one world, one race, one ruler. God forbid that the European Union gives way to a world government. This is Hitler's dream come true. Bush and Blair and the boys from the Brotherhood of Death have something in mind for you. God forbid we have a 1984 in the year 2010.
The fellow who used the pen name George Orwell was actually a member of the Fabian Society, which is a Fabian socialist there in England, and obviously had knowledge of their plans, which we now see coming to fruition.
Joseph Goebbels would tell a lie, and Hitler would tell a lie. The bigger the lie, they're going to believe it.
Investigators say the terrorists may target U.S. nuclear plants, bridges, or dams.
What's going to happen now? Is it going to be a second attack? Is it going to be another icon? Is it going to be the Seattle Space Needle or the Golden Gate Bridge? This is one of the longest unsupported structures in the world. It spans the entrance to San Francisco Bay. Were it to fall, and the president would say, no more, we must have the passage of the Patriot Act too. We must have martial law. We must have a draconian form of government where there would be checks on the road, where there would be monitored conversations, where your website, your telephone, and maybe your bedroom monitored by agents of the United States government. That's what's to come. That's the program. Hitler burned down the Reichstag. What for? To get transference of power from the people to the president and the police. This structure, were it to go down, might be the necessary ingredient for Bush and the boys in the Brotherhood of Death to ask you in a kinder and gentler way than Uncle Adolf to give up your Constitution. But he'll say, well, it's just for a short period of time. But will it be? Or is it intended to be forever? Next question. FB lie number 4. We know that NORAD is supposed to take down a plane or force it down, drive it down if it's going to go into a city and it's going to endanger the lives of millions of people.
There was an open line established between FAA, NORAD, and other agencies, including CIA and FBI that morning.
We did not have an open line at that time with the FAA. We did not have an open line at that time with the FAA.
I would encourage all of you that work for larger news organizations than I do as a freelance writer to look into the NORAD issue. We should be able to determine through government records who gave the command to scramble the jets from Langley instead of Andrews, which apparently was a critical mistake, and follow the chain of command upwards from that command to find out who is accountable for the NORAD blunder that morning.
We find that NORAD does what?
They launch alert aircraft that are on the runway, fully armed, 24 hours a day to protect the people of the United States from hijackers and terrorists. That is their mission. We have a squadron at the Otis Air Force Base at Cape Cod and another squadron at Andrews Air Force Base. In fact, 2 squadrons down there, just 10 miles from the White House. They're on duty around the clock.
The Andrews Air Force Base has 2 squadrons, right?
That's right, 1 Marine and 1 Navy.
1 Marine, 1 Navy. And these planes are up for about an hour and a half?
The Pennsylvania flight was over an hour and a half before it was shot down.
NORAD is ordered to stand down, and they can only be ordered to stand down by the Chief Executive of the United States.
These planes, in fact, are routinely launched to check out any commercial flight that strays from its flight plan or is out of radio contact for a very limited amount of time. They're scrambled instantly. But 18 minutes later, 2 F-16s were scrambled. But where did they take off from? Otis Air Force Base on Cape Cod, nearly 180 miles away.
Since 9/11, NORAD has sent fighter jets more than 500 times to check out suspicious planes. The North American Aerospace Defense scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets from Andrews Air Force Base to intercept the passenger jet. And 2 other fighters took off from Norfolk with orders to fly precautionary air combat patrols over Washington. The fighters were called off when the jet landed without incident in Baltimore.
Project for a New American Century was put together in the year 2000 by the Gang of Four, the Rumsfeld, the Cheneys, Wolfowitz. This plan outlined world domination by overwhelming United States military power. And the PNAC plan called for a catalyzing event, their words, to galvanize the American public behind the notion of world domination. And they said it would take a catalyzing event like another Pearl Harbor.
Somebody's getting the gold and we're getting the shaft. It's like the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor reserve. The banksters control it. The banksters control this operation. I'm talking about an evilarchy here. The Council on Foreign Relations is America's evilarchy.
Either with us or against us,
You're either evil or you're good.
Bush talks about an evil axis. Well, he's part of the evil archy. His granddaddy, Senator Prescott Bush, was a financier of a fellow named Adolf Hitler.
It's very well documented that Prescott Bush financed Hitler's rise to power through the Harriman Bank, and further, that he was tried for treason and convicted and lost that bank.
Expand a little bit about some information that most people don't know, and that's that Senator Prescott Bush, when he was director of Brown Brothers Harriman, financed Adolf Hitler directly.
This is part of the syndicate operation. But who was the Harrimans? The Harriman interest was actually created from London through Abel Harriman's father, through Jacob Schiff. It was created on behalf, at that time, of the King of England, Edward VII. It was Edward VII to organize World War I. He died before living to enjoy the outcome of this plan. So Harriman was part of the syndicist banking network of the world, inside the United States. Harriman was the key person, like Prescott Bush, for example, who as chief executive officer for Brown Brothers Harriman, signed the paper which authorized the release of funds to bail the Nazi party out to become then put in by Hindenburg as the governing party of Germany.
Fascism seems to run in the Bush family, and that GW's great-granddaddy, Prescott Bush, financed Hitler's rise to power and the nightmarish Third Reich. Half a century later, we are faced with the emergence, the in-our-face emergence of the Fourth Reich. We have the return of fascism to the United States.
If you liked what Hitler did, you're going to love what Bush is doing.
You know what's happening today, don't you? Sure you do. I know what's happening. You know what's happening. You go to the dictionary, under fascism. What do you see there? Pictures, two of them. One of George W. Bush just smiling at you, and the other of whom? His evil twin, Adolf Hitler. Both of them. You want to find out what fascism's about? Read the definition in the dictionary. Rule of, by, and for corporations. Look at what's going on in America. Look at the Walmarts. Look at the ABC, NBC, CBS, the Walt Disney, the whole thing. Is that what we're under? What's happened to the unions? What's happened to sovereignty of America? We're controlled by multinational corporations and the banksters. Pure and simple.
And they are in the war business. They are trying to bring about world government through world war. That's exactly what Hitler did. In Hitler's second book, the one after Mein Kampf, the world order, the new world order. And Bush Sr., Opium Poppy Bush, I mean, that's just a nickname he picked up in Vietnam when he was head of the CIA, all documented in the book. All fall down. One world, one race, one ruler. The blacks, browns, people that don't agree, I mean, they're to be terminated.
It's real clear that they want to reduce the population. Anyone can find that information from just looking at the minutes of a Bilderberger meeting. What is not so clear is exactly how they're going to deliver that message to us. Reducing the population 80% is quite a feat. Vaccines has got to be a key method for delivering toxins, disease, death, and mayhem. They have taken the oral polio vaccine that was discontinued in the United States and shipped it over to Africa, and those people are dropping like flies from AIDS as well as the oral polio vaccine.
There's an alliance happening between the legitimate right and the legitimate left, because the enemy has taken a position in the center. Now we have an opportunity to outflank the sons of bitches. From the right and from the left, we're talking about the same group of people. What the FBI isn't telling you about, and what the FAA isn't telling you about, and certainly Osama bin Bush isn't telling you about, is the fact that those planes that were flying around the sky could be commandeered from the ground by NORAD. This craft is a 757, a Boeing. The same type of craft that was flown into the World Trade Center. The technology has existed since the 1970s to override the controls of a Boeing 767, 757. In the distance is New York. It was attacked on September 11th, 2001. The World Trade Centers went down, and the demand for war skyrocketed. Did agents of the United States government, the CIA and the FBI, knowingly, willfully, and with malice aforethought, engage in activities which resulted in the destruction of those two American icons? There wasn't a single solitary Mideastern name on the flight manifest of either American Airlines or United Airlines. The question has to be answered. Why? That is the burning question, Mr. Bush. It needs an answer, and not by Herr Kissinger and company.
Did they commandeer the planes from the ground? I personally believe they did. How could one of those planes, which has limiters, governors, be overridden to make a direct hit into the building?
The safest way to crash into the Pentagon is to dive into it while aiming for the center of the 5 rings. However, the terrorists decided to fly along the ground and crash into the building near the helicopter landing pad. The problem with hitting this particular area was that his plane was coming from another direction, so he had to make a 270-degree turn in order to hit that side of the Pentagon. It would have been easier for him to hit Donald Rumsfeld's office. The risky, acrobatic maneuvers of this airplane is enough to convince me that no human was in control of it. I doubt that even the best Air Force pilot could fly a 757 a few inches above obstacles, and at 400 miles per hour.
On the face of it, it's impossible. Eyewitnesses on the ground, including professional pilots, said that whoever was at the controls had to have been an expert pilot. But in fact, an airline pilot with 30,000 hours would not have attempted a maneuver like that. Because Hani Hanjour, the man who flunked repeatedly out of flight school, we were told was at the controls, screaming in the back, blood on the cockpit. He dives that airplane 7,400 feet per minute, pulls out at the last minute, but a heavy aircraft like that will continue traveling in a downward direction even with the nose up. In other words, would continue to descend right into the ground. In other words, a very tricky maneuver. In other words, a near impossible maneuver by an expert.
I've been told that people who were looking up there saw a commuter craft, or what they believed to be a commuter craft, which would hold maybe 12 people, or 15, 20 at the most, came zapping out of the sky and did this. Could it have been an aircraft, which we call a drone? In Baghdad, it wasn't what building they could hit, it's what window they could hit. And if you take a look at the $20 bill, on one side when it's folded, miraculously it looks like there's the Pentagon with the flames coming out of the center. And you turn around on the other side and you see the Twin Towers. I was fooling around with this thing, showing this to somebody in London.
It's just so, it's incredible. When I saw it, I actually felt tingling down my spine. It was actually quite horrendous because it looks so much like, I mean, you didn't even have to tell me. It just looks so much like the horrible event that happened at the World Trade Center. Even the fact that where the smoke's coming out of, you know, both the towers, it's just in the exact place. And it's blatant. It's blatantly basically showing you that this was planned.
911 was exactly that kind of plan, designed to bring into effect a law already sitting there, already written, called the Patriot Act in the Department of Homeland Security. A very SS type of organization. 911 is the greatest lie ever sold.
We're supposed to trust these people. We're supposed to... They're controlling our lives.
Fascism, Cashism, the New World Order, it's all the same. They intend to kill you.
What you're seeing with the neocons is you're seeing the universal fascists, and they want to go all the way. Their essential objective is reduce the world population to less than 1 billion. Their essential objective is reduce the world population to less than 1 billion. Reduce the world population to less than 1 billion in a very short period of time.
I was in shock. I mean, I just couldn't believe that you've actually made it into a plane, a shape of a plane as well, which is even more symbolic. And I mean, I know that they are really into their symbols. I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but what else is on there? Is there the Big Ben or the Parliament or some symbolic place in England? You know, it's crazy.
We must incite a revelation, an awakening. If we have a revelation, we can stop or control or avoid a revolution.
What passes for news in America is controlled propaganda. You've got those on the left, those on the right, who must come together. A plane doesn't fly without wings, so we bring those on the left, those on the right together, and then we can become a mighty force.
I think this is the most positive development in American politics during my lifetime. I'm so happy to see it. We have always worked for an alliance on the basis of issues, and leave the name-calling aside. Yes, I do think that this is a wonderful development, and I think that that it's time for a realignment of politics in this country. The issue is no more, as far as we're concerned, it's not right or left. It's the same. Really, it's always been national sovereignty. Economy and government, which means no more war, stupid wars that we don't need, and it means to work toward the goal of benefiting American society.
We must pay attention to what's going on inside the government. God bless them; they're our government. The most endangered species are dedicated leaders. We need dedicated leaders. We need each other to stand forth and look deeper, go deeper. If it's an inside job, we the people are the government. We can help fix it. And the way of positive thinking and positive living and being a great messenger of hope and a great role model for what freedom truly is. America can do that if the people get involved. And you must get involved, because if you don't, you're going to lose.
You must inform yourself of the facts about what's happening today, because I don't care how brilliant you are, if you are operating on incomplete or erroneous information, you cannot possibly make a correct decision.
Behind me, there's a ship coming in underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. Will it still be standing in 2 years? Or will many of American icons be sacrificed for the New World Order? Hitler burnt the Reichstag. And I believe that Bush and the boys from the Brotherhood of Death had a bloody hand in the taking down of the Twin Towers in New York City. Definitely we hear the winds of war. Definitely we see the terror before our television sets. Definitely an event is ready to occur. Can we stop it? If we have an alliance from the right and from the left, if we outflank them, if we get to those who manipulate the minds of America's masses from the center ground, we can change the world, and we can topple the towers of Babylon before we burn in the literal hell on earth.